Thank you, thank you. I think it's one of the best birthdays I ever had. Having it along with Madras Day always, people keep it in the memory. Today is my 60th birthday. And I thought I will do something I love. Right? Talking about Madras is something I cherish, I love, I want to... Madras வந்து ரொம்ப ஒரு குழப்பமான டவுன். ஒரு 4-5 days back was my Tamil star birthday. Then one of my best friends and I, we went for dinner in Dakshin. Dakshin is one of the best restaurants in Madras. It was within Adayar Park. Now it's outside. அதில் நான்வெஜ் மெனு பார்த்தா ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஐட்டம் யூ won't believe. You can check it in net. என்ன தெரியுமா? ஐயர் ஸ்பெஷல். நான்வெஜ்ல கீழே ப்ரான் எல்லாமே லிஸ்டாக இருக்குது. The menu is on the net. You can check it. So ஒரு குழப்பமான டவுன். So it started as a textile town. Basically, people came here to buy cloth. வெள்ளக்காரன் வந்து நம்மளை ஆட்சி பண்ணுறதுக்காக வந்து பிடிச்சாங்கிறதெல்லாம் கதை. Buying and selling cloth was 20 times more profitable than running a country. It's what is called revenue farming. All this fight for land came between the colonial powers. வெள்ளக்காரன் French-ஓட English fought with the French fought with the Portuguese, then the Dutch to control the looms of the Indians. Nothing else. Finally, they were forced into revenue farming and running the country. Textiles, we had a glorious tradition of textiles, which was identified as early as 1500s by the Portuguese and the Dutch. ஒரு பெரிய இதில் they started buying cloth. The English were actually in Masala-Patnam. And they looked at the Dutch and the Portuguese in around Madras, making a lot of money, making 5 times, 10 times the money. So they also want to come and they break the cardinal rule. The cardinal rule is never be close to another colonial town. கொஞ்சம் தள்ளி இருந்தால் தான் we can share it. நமக்குள்ளே சண்டை போட வேண்டான்னு. They are 3 kilometers from Santom. Santom was a flourishing town at that time. Lots of ships. They were called East India men. There is one interesting story about these ships. England was making 20 ships. France was making 20 ships. Suddenly the Dutch make 250 ships 1 year. That is one major technology change. They had invented that cam wheel. The flowing water, the circular, they made a circular saw and started making a lot of East India Dutchmen. The ships were called Dutchmen. So a small country like Netherlands could control 1/3 of the world at that time. அவங்க போட்ட வழியில தான் the Englishmen started and the colonialism happened. These people are called the Nabobs. England and Scotland were depopulated, at least the male part of it. Men had started coming here because they were making a lot of money. They went back, they bought parliamentary seats, they bought dukehoods, they could get knighted. They were called the Nabobs, N-A-B-O-B-S, which was what they pronounced the Nawabs as. So, நம்ம வந்து cloth நினைக்கிறோம், but all these people, though they were not allowed to trade for themselves, they had to be company employees. They were dealing in almost everything, and the biggest was diamonds. Our diamond called Pitt's diamond, which the governor does buy from a slave or illegally from a slave and transports it to England in the shoe heel of his son. And the one with the French, the only people who could afford to buy it were the French royalty. Napoleon had it on his sword. Mary Antoinette had it the day before she was arrested. Very unlucky diamond. The Pitt's diamond is now called the Regent diamond. It is in the Paris Museum. But on the diamond வித்த காசுல Pittோட grandson and great grandson became prime ministers of England. They became all powerful. So a lot of English politics was determined in Madras. So நிறைய, for example, நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா ரங்கநாதரோட ஒரு கண் வந்து was a diamond, the Orloff diamond, which went to Russia. It came through Pondicherry, Madras, and went to Europe. Once again, another unlucky diamond. So ரங்கநாதர் is not stone, is சுதை வேலை தான். 1008 சாலிகிராமம் வச்சு சுதை வேலை. அதில் ஒரு கண்ணு வந்து was paste and ஒரு கண்ணு was a diamond. In a way, British were அப்படியே eliminating all the diamonds from Kollur. ஒரே place called Kollur in the Golconda இதில். So all those diamonds, some of them have stories. Many of them did not have stories. Madras became a very important pivotal point in the diamond trade. What was happening through Goa and Lisbon became Madras, London and Amsterdam. So on the diamond trade, Madras played a very big role. Most of it was illegally done because they were employees of the government, of the company, and they were doing it illegally. But Madras was a very bad town. We keep repeating it often. For a shipping or a port. there's a huge sandbar. We have two not perennial rivers, but two rivers which have been running for millions of years. The Kuvam and the Adayar, though they were not named at that time, they are pushing sand into the sea. So, so any ship of those days was hitting the sandbar and breaking down. Lot of shipwrecks. And so, all ship had to stop 2 kilometers away, and the Masula boatmen would ferry you, and even ladies were carried into, the Mem Sahibs and the children were carried into the town they were going to live in. So, on the Nalamela they came in, and that picture has the ship to the boat to the top of the head. Shipwrecks were numerous. There were so many shipwrecks around Madras. Many of them must have had a lot of gold coins, and even elephants had to be transported on rafts or they had to be pushed out. A lot of people imagine that elephants were exported from India. They were actually imported into India. So, ingeranda cloth pogum, couple thiruppi gaaliya varappo, whatever the Britisher could bring, he could sell in India. So, that included elephants. So, from Pegu and Siam, they would load an elephant and bring it along. The seabed is still stocked with, I am going to give you the data, is dotted with wrecks. Now in the 60s, there was a lot of speech about treasures on ship wrecks along Madras. In the 1 year, 1811, January to May, ships have gone into the sea off the coast of Madras. A lot of them happened just opposite the Kuvam or the Adayar because of the flow. The shipwrecks on the Romanala nadakudhu. Recent a ship on the Matikichi. This is the Stamatis. The Stamatis ship in the 60s, which was very, very famous. The ship came and ran over the sandbar. They were, we had a very big storm in the 60s, late 60s, 67, 68. So we were actually importing grain or we were being donated grain. So we used to have a mother ship and vacuum they used to transport it to smaller ships. So all these ships the cyclone those days they had not a very strong meteorological report. So some of these ships sank, some of them ran ashore. The Stamatis the entire Madras used to come and watch. It was a big cinema I think the 4 பேர் Shivaji Muthuramanla unemployed graduates the beach வரமா பாட்டு பாடின்னு போறப்போ நெஞ்சிருக்கும் வரை அந்த பாட்டுல பேக்ல the ship தெரியும், not intentionally but unintentionally. But இப்படி தான் இருக்கும். The ship தரையை தட்டினப்போ this was of Madras. ஒரு 10-15 years back we had another ship hitting and the same thing happened. But Stamatisல என்ன ப்ராப்ளம்னா immediately it was sold for scrap and they could scrap, they were not so strong in breaking the ship. Piece katnanga and it became a death trap. Very sharp things, and every Kanum Pongal we used to have 10-15 people dying or even more. People who were taken by the current and hit against the so Romanal Kaichi Pada recent or 10-15 years back then they had a huge crane coming and pulling it out and scrapping it. So the shipwrecks, I am talking about how bad it was for a port. So Francis Day and Logan they start this city, but this girl could have been responsible. We are going to talk about two beautiful women with Santhome connections. They were half Portuguese. This girl, unnamed by even Muthaiya was very sure that this girl moved to Fort St. George after Francis Day went back to England. But did Francis Day start the port in a very bad let us say, place for a port because he had a girlfriend 3 kilometers away? So the people say he was equivalent of a court martial later during his company, and there's no there's nothing that we can remember about Francis Day. Other governors had their statues or something installed, but Francis Day, the father of the city, is literally forgotten because he went under a black cloud back home. Something had happened, and was it a beautiful? They were called Mesitos, I think, half Portuguese girl. These are the autographs of the initial people who founded the city. We have Francis Day there. But imagine the time when we think Aurangzeb is way back into the Chola times and British are very recent. They were all parallel. When Madras was being built, Shah Jahanabad in Delhi was being built. Red Fort was being built. Chandni Chowk was being built. So a lot of this area around Madras was owned by the Mughals. In fact, the Mughals had a mint in Kacheri Road, just 10 minutes away. This coin mentions Alamgir Aurangzeb and Mylapore. Perhaps the only coin in which Mylapore is mentioned is a Mughal coin. So Purusavakam or Egmore or Tondayarpet, everything is bought from the Mughals. The advantage, You are staying outside the fort. If a robber or a murderer wants to hurt you, he is answerable to the Mughal Empire. The territory belongs to the Mughals. So that most of the expansions that the British had around Madras were buying or renting, not by conquest. Of course, most of these became textile villages. Weavers moved close by because they had a ready market. We had this Madras text later. Then we had this bleeding Madras. Very famous because it was having vegetable dyes which were not color fast. So every time you washed, it would come off. But very few, very intelligent advertising agencies said that every time you wash the shirt, it will be a different color. The bleeding Madras. That is how it was marketed. The Madras text, of course, is the major clothing for slave industry. Madras had slaves legally, and we even had a place called Konimere, which is now called Kunimede on the way to Pondicherry. We had a slave trading fort between Pondicherry and Madras. Initially, this cloth was transported for clothing slaves. Then finally, it became the sort of currency for exchange to slaves. They were exchanging this cloth for slaves. And even today, it's very popular in Africa, Nigeria especially, where the newborn, the dead, and the bride, new bride, they wear Madras checks. They call it injury or something, and the George cloth. Africa. அப்படியே டெக்ஸ்டைலில் ஒன்றா டெவலப் பண்ணி they came into the very advanced textiles. This is called the beetle wing textile, with which Madras was the leader in the world. In fact, Hobart School இன்னைக்கு எக்ஸ்பிரஸ் அவென்யூக்கு ஒரு ஸ்கூல் இருக்கு. For Muslim girls it was started. The girls were actually taught to make beetle wing dresses. The viceroy's wife, Curzon's wife, wears it in a ball. அப்படியே the peacock throne மாதிரி she makes one dress. We got to see that. So this beetle வந்து நம்ம பொன் வண்டுன்னு தமிழில் சொல்லுவோம். This is not actually the wing. It is the ஒரு hard casing for the wing. So இதை எடுத்து they had to boil it in steam and then stitch it on. Almost 5,000 beetles were killed or found dead to make a gown. This is the Hobart School. இன்னைக்கு கண்டிஷன் இப்படி தான் இருக்கு. அன்னைக்கு எப்படி இருந்ததோ அப்படியே தான் இருக்கும். So there's no change. Beautiful dresses. இன்னைக்கு கூட I think Far East you find a lot of these things coming up. This is not very clear, but Curzon, இந்த லைட் அமர்த்த முடியுமா? இது பண்ணலாம். கிளியர் தெரியல நினைக்கிறேன். Lady Curzon wearing a beetle wing dress in which 5,000 beetles were stitched onto the 5,000 wings at least, so 2,500 beetles stitched onto her dress. This is the other Santhome girl. She married Dupleix. She already had children from a previous marriage and married Dupleix. Dupleix was the nemesis of Madras. He was the Governor General of Pondicherry. There was a difference between Pondicherry and Madras. Pondicherry was direct French territory, not a company territory, whereas Madras was a company territory. It's like a country fighting with a company. So Madras was a magnet for wealth. Perhaps we don't have the accounting, but it must have been one of the wealthiest towns in the world. இன்னைக்கு நான் எது சொல்லுவேன், இந்த காலையில் if you go in NSC Bose Road or Mint Road, you will find ஒரு 4-5 கிழவி வந்து இந்த ரோட்டில் அந்த தூசியெல்லாம் பெருக்கின்னு இருக்கும். You will wonder what she is doing. அந்த தூசியை பெருக்கி then they'll blow mercury on it, they'll make gold out of it. Literally the streets are paved with gold. These are the sweepings from a jewelry shop. But this habit is 300 years old because of the mint. Mint காலையில் பெருக்கிறப்ப வெளியில் 20 people used to wait to gather that gold dust, which is still being remembered and done today. So everybody wanted a share of Madras. So Dupleix, of course, I don't know why, but Jean Dupleix, இவர் தான் ஆனந்தரங்கம் பிள்ளையில் ரொம்பவே அவரை திட்டியே எழுதுவார். ஆனந்தரங்கம் பிள்ளைஸ் டைரிஸ் ஹேவ் வெரி ரொம்ப ஒரு கேவலமாகவே அவள் எழுதுவார். அவளோட she wanted Madras to be captured. அந்த உந்துதல் வந்து Dupleix வந்து மெட்ராஸ், because capturing Madras here would hurt sentiments of politics in Europe. So அதை ரிஸ்க் எடுத்து Dupleix captures Madras. She was responsible mostly for the change of this. Madras was captured. Most of the people were taken away in chains for ransom. Although one person who was a factor was not considered worth even for the chains. இவனை கொண்டு போய் நம்ம பாண்டிச்சேரியில் வச்சு என்ன பண்ண போகிறோம், சாப்பாடு வேஸ்ட்னு சொல்லி இங்கே விட்டுட்டு போகிற ஆள் 4 நாளில் மூஞ்சியை கருப்பாக பூசிட்டு he jumps over the fort wall, scales the Kuom river, walks to Kadalur, Fort David in 4 days, starts the first part of the Indian army, turns the company into a worldwide empire. நான் வந்து சில பேர் வந்து they might be on the opposite side. ஹிஸ்ட்ரியில் வந்து ராங் ரைட்டே கிடையாது, ஆப்போசிட் நம்ம கிடையாது. யுக புருஷன் ஒரு வார்த்தை உண்டு. திங்ஸ் ஹேப்பன் அரவுண்ட் யூ, history happens around you. So Robert Clive was one Yuga Purusha. Battle of Adayar happened on October 24, 1746 between the French led by a Swiss general, Paradis, exactly where your MRC Nagar is today. So இது வந்து I asked ChatGPT to do some paintings for me. There is no actual painting on that. That was done by ChatGPT. So 300 Frenchmen on one side and 10,000 Nawabis led by Anwaruddin, the son of the Nawab, on an elephant. So mathematics will tell you that 300 will lose. History will tell you that 300 can also win. So that's what exactly happened. Or organized, the army starts marching into the Adayar river. Appa Adayar river inge sera edathila seradu, Forest state la serum. So ada cross panni or pakkam Santhom side la you have the 10,000 people, Quibble Island la you have the 300 people. So this Nawabi army scatters. They and the 300 people organized vanda odane they scatter. So this inspires the British to start a very organized army. These armies are not full of Britishers, they are made of Sepoys, Indian Sepoys who are trained. So where does the Indian army start? Kadalur. So I hope you can see this. These are all done by ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT can recreate a lot of our history more than what we can contribute. So on the பயத்தில் the gunshot பயந்த the elephant, Anwaruddin elephant வந்து runs up to Kundratur and he loses the top part of his dress. And that, I think that Tunda Kanam, Tuniya Kanam started that. Your prince, your crown prince it's happening to him, so it must be going into your language, right? 3 years kalichu British get back Madras, but not through war, through the war of Austrian succession. ஆஸ்திரியாவில் அடுத்தது யார் ஆட்சிக்கு வரணுங்கிறதுக்கு இங்கிலாந்து யூரோப்பில் இருக்க எல்லாரும் உட்காந்து பேசுகிறாங்க. பேசுகிறப்ப நம்மளாம் நார்மலாக ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் மாதிரி பேசணும். கடைசி 3 வருஷத்துக்குள்ள யார் யார் என்னென்ன கேப்சர் பண்ணுறீங்களோ திருப்பி கொடுத்துருங்க. ஸோ கனடாவில் நோவா ஸ்காஷியாவுக்கு மெட்ராஸ் இஸ் எக்ஸ்சேஞ்ச். மெட்ராஸோட ரிட்டர்ன் இஸ் செலிப்ரேட்டட் வித் ஃபயர் ஒர்க்ஸ் இன் லண்டன். திஸ் இஸ் அன் ஆக்சுவல் பெயிண்டிங். திஸ் இஸ் ஃபோர்ட் டேவிட். யூ டோன்ட் ஹேவ் டூ மெனி பில்டிங்ஸ் தேர், பட் ஃபோர்ட் டேவிட் நீங்கள் அவசியம் வந்து ஐ திங்க் இது கால் சில்வர் பீச் இன் கடலூர். அந்த லெஃப்ட்டில் உள்ளே போனீங்கன்னா you can see was the capital of the English possessions of Coromandel Coast from 1746 to 1752, demolished by the French and restored. So Kadalur has a very big role in which the Madras regiment is formed. The Madras regiment is the parent regiment of the army of 3 countries, India, Bangladesh and Pakistan. So oral history can be made in very small towns by very small people, and the impact is seen much later. One of the most powerful armies in the world started in a small town like Kadalur. The Madras regiment, that was how the Indian Sepoys were. What about your battlefields? Battles have happened in the Mada streets in Mylapore. Battles have happened in Santhom. Battles have happened in Alandur. And what has happened to all of those battlefields? So one of them, at least St. Thomas Mount Kadi, is a polo ground where Mardhanayagam fought against the French. Lally, and in the side the British had to come. The Mardhanayagam fights. And of course, you have small names like Powder Mill Road in Perambur. You have it in Mylapore. Enna powder? Gunpowder. Gunpowder was a real risky thing to do. In fact, one of our founders, Nagabhattan, was a gunpowder maker. One of the 4 founders of Madras was a gun. Avla importance along with Beritimappa. So we have the fort. We have the original Black Town. This is the temple, the Pattanam Perumal. So I wanted to, this is the first major crisis the British almost faced, Chennakesava Perumal. So people come here to build the fort, they come here to weave. So the Dubash is asked to bring in people. So when do people come in? Koil illadha edathila kudiyirukka vendam. Simple thing that we talk about these days, but we have to remember that 75% of the population was not allowed into the temples. So Pattanam Perumal, which was Chennakesava, very close link with the name of Chennai, or there was a lot of let us say protests when Madras was changed to Chennai, but we have had these parallel names all along. In fact, 1952 just across the road Potti Sriramulu, he fasts to death for 57 days to get the linguistic division of states. When he dies, all the papers they say he will be cremated in Chennapuri. They don't use the word Madras, they use the word Chennapuri. எல்லாமே தெலுங்கு வார்த்தை தான். தமிழ் தெலுங்கு ஆச்சாலாம் கிடையாது, தமிழ் இங்கிலீஷ்லாம் மாற்றினாலாம் கிடையாது, எல்லாமே தெலுங்கு வார்த்தை தான். ஸோ பட்டணம் பெருமாள் இஸ் பில்ட் almost from day one. Another temple is built. I want you to go and see this temple. Egavalli temple, it is in the Poultry Market Road next to the Mannadi MRTS. So கடைசி வரைக்கும் ரயில்வே ஸ்டேஷனே வர முடியாது பிளாக் டவுனில். இப்போ ஆஃப்டர் த அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் வரனால we have a station there, Mannadi. So Egavalli temple, those days people migrated for good. They didn't think that they could work and go back home. So they brought their gods along. Temple வந்து சாமியை கட்டின்னு வந்துடுறாங்க. One another example is your bodyguard Muniswarar, which was brought from North Arcot. So they bring their gods along, not just pack the dress and come. So the Egavalli வந்து Caldwell, who documented a lot of things in Madras, he calls it the tutelary goddess of Madras. So வருஷத்துக்கு ஒரு வாட்டி there was a north gate for the fort. The goddess கொண்டு வருவாங்க, இவ்வளோ ரெட் பட்டும் ஒரு தங்க தாலியும் கவர்னர் கொடுப்பார். This happened till 1857. It's recorded. So மெட்ராஸோட காவல் தெய்வம்னு பார்த்தா must have been Egavalli. It's a small temple now. It's an Amman temple in the Poultry Street next to Mannadi. So let's go back to Pattanam Perumal. Must have looked something like this. Temples were called pagodas. So pagoda வந்து the coin the கோபுரம் போடுறனால it's also called a pagoda. எனக்கு வந்து I studied Vidya Mandir across the road. 5th classல என்னமோ drawing classல draw pagodas நாங்களாம் we started drawing temples. அப்போ நம்மளோட இப்போ ஒரு பெரிய மாஸ்டர்ஸ் இதில் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் ப்ரொஃபஸர் இருக்கார், அவர் பேர் வெங்கடேஷ். அவர் என்ன சொல்லிட்டு சீச்சி இப்போ இருக்காதுடா பக்கோடா, நம்ம கச்சேரி ரோட்டில் விற்பாங்க ரவுண்டாக இருக்கும். நாங்கள் எல்லாரும் we rubbed off the temple and drew this. All of us had to stand outside that day. Something I'll never. Every time I mention pagoda, I'll never forget that. So the French have given back Madras and the British are doing their homework. Why did we lose it in the first place? It's like the goose that lays golden eggs. How did we afford to lose this? Then they realized that the Indians had built their homes very close to the fort and we could not see the enemy coming in. So they create what European forts all had, Esplanade. You have a place called Esplanade in Penang, you have it in Madras, you have it in Calcutta. It is the open space around the fort. If it is being sloped like this so that you can't push your cannon up, it's called a glazes. In which building is called the glazes today? Reserve Bank of India is called the glazes. So அங்கே வந்து ஸ்லோப்பாக இருக்கும். In case you push a cannon up, the cannonball can't fire or you can't push the cannon, one of the two. So this is the Esplanade. This must be the Parry building today. So Dare House இருந்திருக்கும். So this open space is there for a long time. How do they enforce the Indians not building here? இன்னைக்கு ஒரு ஓப்பன் ஸ்பேஸ் கிடைச்சா கட்டிடுவோம்ல. For example, கோடம்பாக்கத்தில் temple pond has been filled and you have put a 4-story building on that. So how did they enforce? This still survives. Parry Dare House பக்கத்தில் the obliques. That was the last to go. They had, I think, 10 to 13 things they had. The last was Broadway. This road was Broadway and they had that and that's gone now. Appo when they want to knock off the Indian town, they have no problems. They just give them some space, knock it off. But the British encounter a problem in knocking off the temple. Something that I would really appreciate the East India Company was total respect they had for the locals' customs and perhaps temples. So many temples they have funded or asked their dubashas to, they must be company because the replacement is called a company temple. This is of course the dubash, dobash, the interpreter. When one person doesn't know Tamil, the other person doesn't know English, you need a person in middle who becomes extremely rich. In fact, Walter Scott's novel of Surgeon's Daughter has a villain from Madras who is a dubash. So the British call one of the Dubashas, mostly the Manali family, and ask him to talk to the Indians and get the temple shifted. So the deal that they give is, we'll give you so much of land, 24,000 square feet of land somewhere else, and we'll give you money to build 2 temples. Finally, they don't give the money, but the Indians are rich by the time. So they can collect the money from, instead of Chenna Kesava Perumal, we have Chenna Kesava and Chenna Mallikeshwara, Shiva and Vishnu temple. Perhaps one of the earliest temples which were the Shiva and Vaishnava temple being so close together, sharing a pond, sharing a their. Otherwise, everywhere else in Tamil Nadu, they were cutting each other's throats. So, the Pattanam Perumal, it was called because Chennapattanam was perhaps one of the earliest temples sociologically which allowed all caste people to come in. So, people who could not go into temples and see gods elsewhere went into Pattanam Perumal and met their god for the first time. This is the replacement temple. The pond is of course so many ponds in a place where there's no natural water. They have to depend on rainwater to fill it. These are all parts of the temple today. You can see the Armenian church. This was the esplanade. So when all the enemies vanish, when the British become all powerful, they don't have to care about an esplanade, right? And you have a lot of open space around your prime property. What are you going to do first? You build a Doric column and a lighthouse. Earlier the lighthouse was in above the exchange building within the fort, where they put up a structure and lit it up. And next comes the High Court. Some say, I can be corrected, that the High Court was wrongly built, hiding the lighthouse from the southern side. The ships from the south could not see them. So when this became an issue, the light from the lighthouse was just shifted from the top of the lighthouse to the top of the High Court. The High Court served as the lighthouse of Madras till the 1960s on a kerosene lamp. The electricity came perhaps in 70s when the new lighthouse was built. So this was actually the old court in your customs building. The cupola is still there. The customs building in First Line Beach, before you take a left to Rayapuram. So this building has now gone, we have a multi-story concrete monstrosity there. But this was the original court, and it was called the Supreme Court. Madras was one place which had a Supreme Court before its High Court. And this is shifted to the customs, and all the files from this court are shifted to the High Court, where the new activity starts. One of the most important cases that happened which ran for a couple of centuries. Kanjipuram Koyilla Yanikku enna namam podrathu? Vayya Yuva. This case went on for 200 years, more than 200 years, starting from the Supreme Court to the High Court. And I think it was solved even after freedom that it was solved. Some of the madness comes with extreme riches, right? And who are the rich people? The zamindars who called themselves kings, the kings who had been degraded to zamindars. Madras presidency was from Kanyakumari to Orissa. You had hundreds of zamindars. You had kings who had lost their country to the East India Company. So they all moved to the city because there's a princess college here. The children could study here. So they came here, had a lot of fun, and in a way they created a lot of character of Madras that we see today. A lot of culture in Madras was sponsored by these zamindars. This, of course, was a palace exactly in Mandavalli, where you have the Chaitanya School and the Casa Grande building. This was the Vijayanagaram Palace. Vijayanagaram was a kingdom which still has a fort. They had a standing army during British times. The king, of course, commits suicide and it becomes a ghost bungalow, and AVM shoots his first 3 movies here, including Sabhabati. Sabhabati and Valli Thirumanam was shot here. That is the king. The king's wife. He is a Telugu king, marries a Punjabi queen. The royalty. For a lot of time, Mysore they used to make alliances with Rajasthan. So they were fighting from day one. And though they had a few children, the queen goes to court and claims that her husband is insane and the kingdom should be given to her. So King Gonda, he argues himself and doesn't go employ a lawyer and proves to the judge that he is sane. But a year later walks off the balcony. So he just commits suicide. So the Rupay Bangla Madi Rumanaliki irundhathu. This used to have 4 or 5 Ravi Vermas, one of the family members side. They just locked it and went away. This was the Princess School in Mount Road, Tenampet. So where all the children of the zamindars அடுத்த ஜெனரேஷனாவது உருப்படட்டுமே அப்படின்னு வெள்ளக்காரன் நினைச்சு அவங்கள படிக்க வச்ச டைம் அதில் couple of students get together and shoot the headmaster over some scandal involving the headmaster's wife. So அதனால the case is held in Madras. Kadambur and Singampatti Jamin are the accused, and of course later the case is shifted to Bombay because அங்கே ஒரு bias இருக்குன்னு சொல்லிட்டு அங்கே தான் Swaminathan of Harrington Road argues and wins the case and acquits the Zamindar boy, one of whom of course turns into an approver. And of course his wife, Swaminathan's wife, is Amu Swaminathan, one of the constitution writers. His daughter is Lakshmi Saigal, who fought with Netaji, and the other is Mrinalini Sarabhai, who the big dancer. And the family on the Harrington Road ஒரு டிஃப்ரெண்டான ஃபேமிலி ஃபார் மெட்ராஸ். இது முதல்ல இந்த பேலஸ் காமிச்சேன்ல, இந்த பேலஸ்ல இருந்து ஒரு பையன் becomes a India cricket captain. Vizzy, You still have a trophy in his name, Visi. He could not bat, he could not bowl, he could not field. Why did he become the captain? Because the BCCI did not have money. The BCCI today, which is next to the Reserve Bank in wealth, did not have the money to send its team to England. This man footed the bill, so he was made a captain. And he used to bribe the opposite team not to make him out, but still he never scored a double-digit run. So, and he was knighted. He was knighted when he was in England, one of the very few this too. And Visi, of course, is a Visi trophy. And this family had a lot of linkage to the Benares royal family. He is the only Indian cricket captain, not even Dhoni, who has a statue for himself. There's a statue for him in Benares. So, he becomes BCCI chief, then becomes selector, LMA. Money has many ways. This is the largest trophy in the world for polo. It's called the Kolanka Cup. Till 10 years back, there are 27 bottles of champion. That is what I think 27 must be some number for the polo players perhaps. So this is not being used now. It is made fully of silver, made by the royal family of Kolanka for the polo club. So they could afford to do anything. That is what I am coming to say. The madness had crept in. And commoners trying to become royalty. So Raja Annamalai Chettiar was the son of a moneylender. He got the title of Raja from the British, who didn't know what it really meant. And he posed as if he was a king, had statues kept for himself, built a palace in Quibble Island on the banks of the Adayar. And you should see, in Nikkoda, that family is very politically powerful. And some good things also come out of this. He is responsible for the Tamilisai. When the Music Academy says that you can't sing anything except Telugu, in one of the Music Academy magazines even calls Tamil a Vyadi. You can't do all that today. Raja Annamalai Chettiar, Kalki, Rajaji, Tyagaraja Bhagavathar, MS Subbulakshmi. MS Subbulakshmi was banned for 9 years from, today if you go into Music Academy, you can see her photograph at the entrance. Her granddaughters sing the prayer song in almost every function. But Music Academy had chucked her out. And when they chucked her out, her husband Sadasivam did not take him lying down. But Tyagaraja Bhagavathar was never invited into Music Academy, but once the Tamilisai started, he went concentrating on movies. Sadasivam starts as parallel Sabha, the Mylapore Sangeeta Sabha. He says MS sings for MSS. And there's upon the Music Academy building was not there. They were collecting money. At the time, Sadasivam was also collecting money. So, yaar first on the Sabha building cut up poranga. But or 1950s, the Panchayat Ai, MS Subbulakshmi is allowed back into Music Academy. All till the last paisa Sadasivam had collected, he gave back to Music Academy. Though they don't say, the building's foundation stands on MS Subbulakshmi's money. Raja Annamalai Chettiar, 3 of his children became mayors of Madras. So the MRC, Mayor Ramanathan Chettiar is a son of his. So Raja Annamalai, the other day I was talking in 174 flat and I told them, your area is called MRC Nagar, your pin code is named after Raja Annamalai Chettiar. So they knew what would go into posterity. They were aiming for those things. The last one has the cricket stadium named after him, M.A. Chidambaram, Raja Muttaya Chettiar, and this MRC, Mayor Ramanathan Chettiar. I would also like to, because I had to take a wide spectrum of things. What are they talking about? Area bounded by North Otteri, Kilpark Garden, Egmore. Which area is this? Anna Nagar. Yes. What is more, your most prosperous, your most lucky area today to live in? This is how it started. 1957. They built houses, but nobody was going there. Night when the fox alang kattuma. The fox alang howl pannuma. The early people, the snakes used to come from the Kuvam when it was flooding. So early residents of Anna Nagar had a real challenge. And people had a problem getting into, the government had a problem getting people into Anna Nagar. Mainly because only one road is named in Anna Nagar. All others are numbers. Which is named? Shanti Colony. Shanti Colony is the only name. All other things are numbers. The address control, they call 25 paise vaangittu ungala vandu kondu poi and veetla viduvanga. You had guides in Anna Nagar. You should listen to Tripura Sundari talking about Anna Nagar. All these things. Blue Star is not about the company, it's about an ironing man who was Bullu who was there abdimba. So people shoot most of the time before the maps. Of course, it was named after Anna, who had died just then, and the Guinness Book of World Records rates this, along with Nasser of Egypt, as the largest. These are all interconnections. So Nasser oda funeral madhiye Anna oda funeral perusa irundhathu. This is the Anna Nagar tower. This was supposed to be a temporary tower. They wanted to knock it off. The Eiffel Tower was also a temporary tower. They wanted to knock off the Eiffel Tower after the fair was over, but they didn't. The same thing happened to Anna Nagar. The Anna Nagar Tower was purposely made lower than the LIC. So this is how it was built. India International Trade and Industries Fair was opened with V.V. Giri. We have Anna sitting there. We have Nedunjalian sitting there. Anna didn't know that he was going to die in a year, and this area was going to be named after him. So another time, we had the anti-Hindi agitations here. So the Tamil Nadu and the Van Orla Republic Day was attacked in Delhi. A lot of these things we forget today. Was attacked in Delhi by the Jansangh and other pro-Hindi activists. So at the time there was a lot of tension there. So the V.V. Giri comes over here to open it. And the movies the tower, one second. Ramco Cement actually goes on advertisement saying that the tower was built with our cement. Lot of movies, Galata Kalyanam, that is Muka Muttu, then Riksha Karan, everything was shot in Annagar mainly because you had a lot of space and very less people. The architect, we had a postal cover. The architect is Yahya Khan, Yahya merchant from Bombay. In the building, Ordan Katnar. What building is there? Jinnah Mausoleum in Karachi. So the man who built the Anna Nagar, Balaji will answer because he is a quizzer and he trains quizzing students all over. So Yahya Merchant designs this. He designs a mosque in Bombay, and of course Jinnah's much delayed mausoleum is done by Yahya. Appadi Jinnah povome. This is a correction, interconnection. Jinnah is on Kalki's cover after he has asked for Pakistan. So people had accepted. That's what. Kalki was a Tiviramana Congress karar. He had accepted that this was going to happen, right? 44 la. 41 la kettirraru. Enga kekkirarna, Jinnah had a very bad relationship with Madras. His wife was a Parsi who was also a theosophist. Ivangaloda ore daughter, she wanted to put her in the Besant school in Madras. So ore Sunday she had that seances, they had daily astrologers. He was more of a secularist. And Jinnah Pakistan pannalume, he invited so many. The first Pakistani national anthem was written by a Hindu who fled the day after he wrote the song. 3 years kalichu Jinnah sattadukku appuram the song was changed. So Jinnah was a secularist for a long time before he changed. So Jinnah comes to Madras. People's Park. Innikala People's Park na ennane theriyadhu namakku. Park Town. So you have a 112-acre park next to the central station. You have 12 lakes with islands. You have the zoo there. The zoo kenaji theriyuma 1945 la ivanga we will talk about that later. But zoo irundhudu. Then or daily sangalam band vasipanga. Adhe madi whenever leaders come they could hire a place. So this place was hired in People's Park and called Jinnabad for the temporary time. Jinnah comes for 4 days. First 3 days he is sick. He is not able to come to the meeting. 4th day he comes. People actually Mahmoodabad or small state or Nawab Jinnah gets down in Basin Bridge station and goes to Harrington Road where he is staying. That house is still there, Harrington Road, right side. So on the procession people are already standing. Almost 100,000 people are standing. Hindus and Muslims are standing. So they have to replace somebody. The Mahmoodabad Nawab's son is made to stand on the jeep. Those days there was no social media. People did not know how Jinnah looked perhaps. So everybody said Jinnah Zindabad and for the entire procession. So Jinnah comes on the 4th day. 4th day Varappa, Evera Periyar is on the stage. Then Swadesamitra editor is on the stage. Raja Muttaya Chettiar is on the stage. Adukku modal naal they have Ripon building they have an address for Jinnah. They keep changing the dates because he is sick. Jinnah is welcomed along with his sister. Jinnah proclaims the not partition of the country, trifurcation of the country. He talks about Hindustan, Pakistan and the Dravidistan. And this is a real thing. This happened this is an Indian Express paper. He says the Muslims will support if your Dravidians want a separate country. People are very happy, those who want the separate country, but Jinnah never talks about this the moment he leaves Madras. So the closest we ever came to Dravidistan was on that day in People's Park. Indian Express. Date 1941, April 15. April 14th pesnar. April 14, 1941 pesnar, 15th aniki vandhathu. This paper is available on the net. In fact, a lot of your history you can get from Indian Express on Google newspapers. all these newspapers which were there, முக்கியமான நாள் இருக்காது, August 15th இருக்காது, அந்த மாதிரிலாம் they would have removed the papers, but other details you can get. Wartime madness, this molded Madras, literally. அப்போ வந்து people were handed these aircraft recognition, this saying which is a Japanese aircraft, which is Indian aircraft, நீங்கள் வந்து recognize பண்ணுறதுக்காக. There was a scarcity for everything. Engines scarcity. Engines were being sent to Mesopotamia. So you had to have elephants to pull your or shunt your trains or pull your aircraft. இதெல்லாம் ஆவடியில் நடந்தது. And the entire zoo was shot. Because if a bomb lands on your zoo, hungry animals will, this was something that everybody faced throughout the world. In England, even pets were shot. So இது வந்து it happened in one day. The Malabar police was brought inside and made to shoot all the carnivorous animals. The governor, the mayor of Madras, Chakkari Chettiar, is literally begging every zoo in the country, I'll give it free, take it over. But every zoo is facing the same problem. So nobody wants it, and every government orders to cull these animals, so it happens. The city faced an idli famine. Cochin state banned idlis. Madras nearly banned idlis. So much of resources. Idli எல்லாம் வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இன்னைக்கு வந்து we can buy idlis in hundreds of shops here. Those days idlis were reserved only for Diwali day. Just like what you make sweets and karams today, idlis were reserved for Diwali day because it employed so much of resources and so much of labor. So அந்த காலத்தில் idli was taking too much of resources. And wheat, the government was trying to propagate wheat. Street cornersல they were making two things that were invented at that time was Godumai dosa in Madras and Rava idli in Mysore. Both were invented because of rice scarcity. Why did the rice scarcity happen? Because Burma had been cut off. So all your rice was coming from Burma. So என்னன்னா அந்த காலத்தில் வந்து you didn't have watches or clocks as we திருப்பி the fashion is going out because of digital. So fortல வந்து இந்த குண்டு போடுறேன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. The cannon will boom twice a day, morningல ஒன்று ஈவினிங்ல ஒன்று. So you will know what time, approximately what time and go away. Of course Downton is the first clock tower. But in the gundu போடுறது வந்து the first thing is maximum child deliveries happened around that, it seems, because of the shock it gave to the pregnant woman. And it was stopped in 1940s because people could mistake it for a Japanese bomb. So அது எப்படி இருந்ததுன்னா it was a tense period. Even if a saucepan fell down, people used to run for cover. The Japanese would bomb Madras and everybody was sure. What if the copper in your coin becomes more valuable than the coin? ஒரு அண்ணா காயினில் 2 அண்ணா காப்பர் இருந்தால் என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க? Anybody with normal common sense is going to hoard the coins. So you have the police raiding everybody, then lots of postage stamps are given instead of coins. Coins are not coming out. Typically the problem that we had in demonetization. History repeats itself. So finally somebody comes out with an idea, we'll make a big hole in the coin. And so that the copper value goes down. Copper is very valuable for war. All your bomb casings are brass, your communication is brass, your airplane needs kilos of brass. So copper became very, very scarce. And your mines in South America were cut off because of the logistics of the war. 1/3 of the city went out. Actually the words are, the father is cursing the daughter for being overweight. She is not able to get into a general compartment. This cartoon comes in Jagan Mohini. Jagan Mohini was a magazine run by Vaimu Kodainayagi. Vaimu Kodainayagi is the first English novel by a woman was written in Chindadripet in 1800s. And of course Vaimu Kodainayagi wrote 117 novels. Balaji, you answer panadinga. What was this about her first novel? Vaimu Kodainayagi's first novel. What was so fascinating? Fascinating. She was illiterate. She didn't know how to read or write. And first novel she just dictates to her friend, and the novel is done and it gets excellent reviews and it's a bestseller. So she learns a typical Iyengar Mami wearing madisar. She becomes a writer in triplicate. So she writes 117 novels, runs a magazine Jagan Mohini, runs a printing press. When she is jailed for freedom movement in Vellore, she keeps writing the weekly the part of the novel and sending it through the bars so that her husband can print it. So Vaimu Kodainayagiyoda idhula the cartoon. Actually this I wanted to send to Raghu because he's talking about Madras, mentions of Madras in journals. I have sent it to you, right? Right. So many things happening in Madras week that you forget. These are all எப்படின்னா Pundamalai High Road was made only for cars and buses, and Kundrathur High Road, today you don't even imagine Kundrathur High Road to be so important. Kundrathur High Road, the poor ஊர்ல இருந்து போகுதுல, for bullock carts, people to exit. 1/3 of the city exits, or at least the women exit and the men stay back. ஒரு பெரிய issues are there because the Japanese are going to bomb. So when you exit a city, what do? you have to lock your house. So when you suddenly have a demand for 20,000 locks and your total lock production is only 500, people never traveled. They didn't need locks at all. In Dindigaland, 500, no, what happens? The locks, you get a group of people. They start stealing locks and putting up keys and circulating the same thing in the market. And the police special or team organized panni, they catch the lock stealers. So these trenches were actually built. Something like 200 kilometers of trenches were built along all your main roads. Whenever you heard a siren, you had to jump into one of them. So, and then finally we have one short raid on Madras, only one day. The Japanese are able to bomb Madras only for one day. Madras is the only city which was hurt both in World War I and World War II. Emden bombed us in World War I, and Japanese plane, unnamed of course, bombed us in World War II. We even had a post called Chief Camouflage Officer. Hide the city from the skies. The Japanese should not be able to see. This guy is an architect. He did one of your most famous buildings. Who is he? Chitle. He did LIC after this. He was a Chief Camouflage Officer. Then he wrote a book on camouflaging cities from the skies. He talks about the inspiration of zebras, chameleons, spiders and all this stuff. The book is available on the net. Archive.com, you can get that. So he is the chief with the rank of a colonel. So because it was a period of lot of censorship, he didn't talk about it later also. So when the architects Moulan and Brown walk away from building LIC, he is employed to complete the building. So the Delhi Darbar happens. As I said, it is a confused state, a confused city. Delhi Darbar 1911 nadakrappo Muthayalpet Sabhanu ondru. So they set up a competition for somebody to write a Carnatic song on George and Mary. So somebody does it. Lakshman Suri nenikiren. We had a couple of, I should have got that. We had one of those singers sing the same song set to tune a couple of years back. Delhi Rajan George. அதில் வந்து சொல்வார்னா ராமர் லக்ஷ்மணரை கேட்பார், எங்கள் மேரியையும் எங்கள் ராணி மேரியையும் எங்கள் ராஜாவையும் நீ காப்பாற்றணும் அப்படின்னு பாட்டு கேட்பார். ஸோ when Indians were going out of their way to be loyal to the British, Gandhi himself, 1916, the same People's Park, he says nowhere else in the world can one live in the freedom as much as the British Empire. இது வந்து documented. Gandhi said this when he was in Madras. 1916 ku 1921 ku enna difference vandhathu? Jallianwala Bagh. That is when people change. So this Gandhi said this in Madras. So there is a confused loyalty. அப்போ ரெண்டு வெள்ளைக்காரங்க ஜெயிலுக்கு போறாங்க. எதுக்கு? இந்தியாவுக்கு ஃப்ரீடம் கொடுன்னு. நம்மால் ஃபுல்லா லாயலா இருக்கிற டைம்ல they of course Arundel and Annie Besant on Wadia. Wadia comes from one of the oldest, a family which today of course Bombay Dyeing is run by them, and Go Air, one of the oldest companies, they shipbuilders. It was on their ship that the American anthem was written. It was on their ship that the Hong Kong Treaty was signed. Hong Kong being given to the British by the Chinese. So Wadia was from a very big family. He was also a trade union later in Perambur. So these people they returned on June 16, 1917. When no Indian had gone to jail asking for freedom, these people went in. The most controversial topic in Hindi. He was the first Hindi pracharak in Madras. He holds a Hindi class for Mahatma Gandhi, Annie Besant in Gokhale Hall. Avangala class, the first Hindi pracharak. This happens in 1917 or so. Yaar therida? Devdas Gandhi. That is of course the Hindi Prachar Sabha. One of the things which Gandhi was president, Gandhi never went for posts. He was always against, but kadasi saagara varaikku in the post avar yarukume vittu kodukala. President of the Hindi Prachar Sabha. He would ask the Tamilians, won't you spend 1 hour a day to be understood by 4 million of your brothers and sisters? Our used to call it Hindustani. Gandhi was very very pro Hindi, but ivar panna velaikkella Rajaji got all the flack. And Rajaji kadasirikku solluvar, Rajaji is not doing enough for Hindi அப்படிம்பாரு. Rajaji 1937, of course he becomes the premier of Madras. The British allow self-governance பண்றப்போ first thing that he does is prohibition and Hindi imposition. Hindi வந்து he says for 3 classes in school will study in Hindi. அப்போ ஒரே protest வந்தோன்னு சொன்னா it's like a chutney on your plate. Rajaji always had these examples. When he opened the radio station in Madras, he explained to the people, மாட்டு வண்டி எப்படி உங்களை கூட்டின்னு போகுதோ அதே மாதிரி இந்த ரேடியோ பாட்டு எல்லாம் கொண்டு வரோம். Something like that for the common man. He says it's like a chutney on your plate. Nobody is bothered. But the state erupts. The anti-Hindi agitation erupts in 30s, 37. Every 5-10 years we keep having one round of anti-Hindi agitations. Devdas Gandhi, the first silent movie made in Madras was made in Purusavakam, Kichakavadam. Adha subtitle, Hindi subtitle எழுதுறது காந்தியோட பையன் Devdas Gandhi. Of course, Anna was there. Then finally what happens is 60s ரொம்ப பெரிய impact வந்தது. We have a lot of police firing. The army is brought into. How long since the army was brought into Tamil Nadu? It has become an island of peace these days, right? And army is rushed to right turns in this towns, and two of the union ministers from Tamil Nadu, Subramaniam and Alagasan, resign in protest. Lal Bahadur Shastri vandurar adukulla. He is very sure that Hindi has to be imposed. Of course, Rajaji, who introduced Hindi, and Anna, who fought against Hindi, got together for the election reasons. They got together in 1967. So, no enemies, or the typical thing that the politicians here say, the no enemies, or what do you call friends and permanent enemies in politics. I wanted to talk about statues also. This is the Neil statue, which is in the butcher of Allahabad. He used to tie, 1857, he used to tie Indian soldiers to the cannon and fire. So, he went from Madras. In fact, 1857, the mutiny was controlled by the Telugas. That's how the South Indians were called. Telugas from the Madras regiment. So, Neil statue ஒரு முக்கியமான விஷயம் என்னன்னா, Neil statue was perhaps the only statue in the British Empire which was removed before freedom. The British agreed to remove it in 1937. And we have been keeping statues for British East India Company men after freedom. I'll call this or a contrast or oxymoron. That's the Lambton statue we opened in the 70s in St. Thomas Mount. Pennyquick statues all over Madurai. Pennyquick is even almost like a god, because so statues for themselves. Who keeps a statue for himself? Narcissist, or what do you call that? More chief ministers of Tamil Nadu kept statues for themselves. Statues for themselves, not they didn't pay for it. But when you are chief minister and somebody keeps a statue and you don't say no, that means you kept it. So, this Ammu Swaminathan that we are talking about, the constitutional writer from Harrington Road, she used to tell Nehru, you shouldn't call yourself Pandit Nehru. You have nothing to do with Pandits. And Nehru says, I don't call myself that, others call. Avan kooparappa nee mudiyadunu sollanum. We had some incredible women like this. Durgabai Deshmukh, who started the hospital in Nadayar, she has a kid, she is a volunteer in one of these Congress meetings in Andhra. So, opponent Congress used to charge a fee for people to come in, a donation, so that they could collect money for the party also. So, she is told that nobody comes in without a ticket. And a person in white with this comes, a Gandhi cap comes in, and she says, no, don't go in. They said, don't stop Nehru, he is setting the mass. She stopped Nehru from going in. And the many were bold women in Madras. Women, whatever we have done in Madras, women emancipation is a hats off. We admitted women in medical college in 1865. That made a huge change, because a woman would not go to a male doctor even if she was dying. That was the condition in 1865. And the first 5-6 colleges, there were riots in Ireland when women were admitted in medical colleges. So, one of the earliest colleges to admit it was Madras Medical College. And another thing is, a girls' college in Madras goes on strike to become co-educational. That also happens in Madras. The Kilpack Medical College goes on strike in 1967 to become co-educational. So, women emancipation is to that level in this state. So, first one, Kamaraj keeps a statue for himself. People wouldn't believe it. Your YouTube reels are about how he is next to a saint. Kamaraj keeps a statue for himself and makes Nehru come and open it. And the statue is designed, and the statue outside Gymkhana Club. We had Lord Wellington, I think. Wellington, and the post, Ade post. And we talk about the British going away. They didn't go away, they just darkened their faces, right? So, Anna, of course. Anna was modest enough to go to Dalmiapuram the day the statue was opened. The statue was opened one day before the Tamil conference, where all the statues on Marina were opened. So where your Kannagi comes where. And incidentally, Kannagi is the only fictional character in this entire plethora of statues. And has anybody here seen a Kambar statue or a Ilango statue in Madras? They were also kept on the same day? Anna Samadhi Kulla. So if you go into Anna Samadhi today, you have these two statues, and those two statues are very well maintained. Much better than the outside. So Anna models for the statue. The statue is donated by MGR and opened by A.L. Mudaliar. So this happens. And of course you have Karunanidhi. So what happens to these people after the statues are kept? So Kamaraj loses power after 1 year. Anna dies of cancer after 1 year. Karunanidhi is dismissed in the emergency 1 year after the statue is kept. And the statue incidentally was broken down during the funeral procession of MGR. And some of Karunanidhi's well-wishers, they come and say, we have to re-establish your statue. Karunanidhi says, don't. I don't want it again. This is how the statue looked the next day. What is Madras without computers today? Right? We are making our futures on computers today. Alan Turing, who's really not Babbage. I would consider Turing the real father of the computers. His father and mother were in India. His grandfather, Stoney, was a very important bridge builder of Madras. This family lived in Podanur, near Coimbatore and Madras. His grandfather, he was born in India too. And we used to have these pankas. We didn't have fans. So the pankas were a huge cloth which on the ceiling which had to be pulled by a coolie. And it used to creak. The sattathal thunga mudiyala vellakarnala. So actually our grandfather, Stoney, invents a self-lubricating wheel, which he actually patents. Stoney's silent panka wheel. So the inventiveness is in the family. And then Turing goes along and breaks the Nazi code and defeats Germany. One-man army which really defeated Germany was not Churchill, was not Roosevelt, was Turing. The man who broke the Nazi code. So that starts. So why does a union home minister come for a function? To buy a computer. One of the earliest computers in Madras. Shawalas or computer, IIT or computer, LIC basement or computer, 2-3 computers all around. And the computers used to look bigger than the room. You had to wear socks and the school they used to take us to IIT and show the computer. We never thought it will become a laptop one day, right? So this is an IIT Madras, 1973 Computer Center. And what is Madras without cinemas? We had a full talk about cinemas today. So I will just one part of the madness. I would call cinema a big madness, which we accepted at every point. S.S. Vasan. Some of this madness is with the totally powerful people, the totally rich people. They can do what they want without being questioned, right? So Vasan is a writer who runs Anand Vigadan and starts Gemini Studio. In Chandralekha, when actually Vasan epdina, he needs the film to be fast. He wants people to be glued to their seats. So he used to use the word tempo. So tempo patala vara. Ashoka Mitran, who worked in Gemini Studio, would say, if you give a railway guide to Vasan, he'll make it full of tempo. So and the madri he used to do. So Chandralekha tempo patala na rendu circus company kutnu vande, he makes them stay in Mount Road. So one of them, Parasuram Circus, changed his name to Gemini Circus. Gemini Circus is still there. Avayar was one classical, almost a dozen writers wrote Avayar for Vasan, including Pudumai Pittan. Pudumai Pittan wrote one version of it. Kadasiya mix and match panni, they kept shooting, kadasiya edit panni, they made it into one big film. Adhe madi, Avayar or history madi, there were at least half a dozen Avayars, which were all combined together and made into one Avayar. K.B. Sundaramala, which they made us believe that, right? One of the Avayars actually sings, how good a king is Adiyaman. Avana paadi kudicha kalla enna kudukuran. So and the part Avayar ni K.B. Sundaramala the part panna eppadi irukum. So and madri appo enna arudna Avayarla the oru scene ku vandu oru yaanaiya kuttu vandiranga. The yaanai has to break the fort. Appo Vasan gets news that oru dozen yaanai is going from Mysore by a trawler to Andamans for timber. So in the yarn, Takkanu Modern in the harbour master or Pesi, Yana on the postpone money or Naki journey. The Yanak on the Kasia rush the elephants. They had a plethora of elephants knocking down the fort, cardboard fort. Rajaji Eldur Partabat cardboard forts. Actually, Rajaji was called for this movie. Ticket wind by Ulla Koror. Ukandri writes a review. And the review on the positive was an encouragement Ramadi. But in his diary, அது ஒரு 70s. Luckily after Vasan dies, the diary used to read it. ஒரே கார்ட்போர்டு ஃபோர்ட் கோட்டா இருக்கு, ஸ்கூல் ட்ராமா மாதிரி இருக்கு. அதெல்லாம் வந்து ராஜாஜியோட வெண்டட்னஸ் அது. ஸோ இந்த யானையெல்லாம் வந்து ஒரு இந்த ஃபோர்ட்டை உடைச்சிட்டு இதை பெயிண்ட் பண்ணிட்டாங்க விபூதிலாம். They were rushed to the harbor, lifted by cranes and loaded onto the ship. This is going to be my last slide. குரங்கிலிருந்து மனிதர் வந்தாங்க மாதிரி கடைசி ஸ்லைடு குரங்களை முடிப்போன்னு வச்சேன்னா. So a lot of Hindi films were shot in Madras. So you have Insaniyat. பின்னால் வந்து இரும்புத்திரைன்னு வைஜெயந்தி மாலா அண்ட் இன்னைக்கு வந்து அவர் சொன்னார் இந்த துணை தோழியாக நடித்தாங்க மனோரமன்னர். இந்த தோழியை நடித்தா ரொம்ப ராசியாக இருக்கும். ஏன்னா பார்த்திபன் கனவுல வைஜெயந்தி மாலாவுக்கு தோழியாக சரோஜா தேவி நடிப்பாங்க. பட் பார்த்திபன் கனவு வாஸ் அ மூவி தட் தே டிராக்ட் ஃபார் 4-5 years. தே டிராக்ட். அதுக்குள்ளே இவங்க ஹீரோயின் ஆகி எம்ஜிஆரோட நடிக்க ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டாங்க. ஸோ அதனால் ஐ திங்க் கௌரவ வேடம்னு தே மென்ஷன்ட் சரோஜா தேவி இன் தட். ஸோ அதே மாதிரி ஹிந்தி படம் பண்ணுறப்போ இன்சானியத் யாருன்னா யூ ஹேவ் திலீப் குமார், த எவர் ஹேண்ட்சம் தேவானந்த் அண்ட் பீனா ராய். இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு படம் எப்படியாவது ஒரு லேக் ஆகுமா? பட் வாசன் ஃபெல்ட் இட் வாஸ் லேகிங். இதன் he called his story group and said we have to do something to add the tempo. அப்போ என்ன சொன்னால் ஒரு குரங்க சேர்த்தா நல்லா இருக்கும் சார் கதையில். ஸோ உடனே வாசன் லைக்ஸ் இட் அண்ட் ஹி டாக்ஸ். உடனே அந்த காலத்தில் நெட் இல்லாத காலத்தில் ஜிப்பி ஒரு குரங்கு அது வந்து சாரி I had photos of Zippy. Roller skate பண்ண முடியும். It could typewrite and do a lot of things. $17,000 it was earning a month அந்த காலத்திலே. So nobody knows how much Vasan paid. He flew the trainer and the owner along with the monkey. அப்போ மெட்ராஸில் வந்து who is who all made a beeline to the Gemini studio to get themselves photographed with the chimpanzee. So that is one level of madness that we had. So I wouldn't call it really madness. It's like a Pandora's box மாதிரி. You put all these people together and make a living, make the city prosperous. It bursts at the seams at some places. You let off your steam, so you do something crazy. So the craziness of Madras isn't politics. Madras is the only place which had a Ravan Leela. இந்திரா காந்தி வந்து ராம்லீலா நடத்துறதுனால இங்கே ராவன் லீலா நடத்திருக்காங்க in Veperi. We have had that. We've had all sorts of things which look so crazy 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line. அப்போ பண்ணப்போ ரொம்ப ரீசனபிளாக இருந்திருக்கலாம். So these are all a part of a growing city. இன்னைக்கு மெட்ராஸ் is a success. எனக்கு ஒரு இன்டர்வியூவில் 2 days back they asked me why are we celebrating a British founding of the city. We are not celebrating a British founding. அவங்க ஆரம்பிச்சான். பட் இன்னைக்கு மெட்ராஸ் இவ்வளோ பிரமாதமாக இருக்குது. வேர்ல்டு டாப் செஸ்ஸில் நான் 10 பேரில் 3 பேர் மெட்ராஸ்காரராக இருக்கான். 10 கம்பெனியில் 5 கம்பெனி சேர்மனாக இருக்கான் உலகத்தில். அதெல்லாம் வந்து எவ்ரிபடி ஹஸ் கான்ட்ரிபியூட்டட். த இண்டியன்ஸ் ஹவ் டன் எக்ஸ்ட்ரீம்லி வெல் இன் மெட்ராஸ். ஸோ ஒரு ஷோகேஸ் ஆஃப் ஹவு அ சிட்டி மைக்ரண்ட் சிட்டி ஷுட் பி, ஹவு இட் ஷுட் க்ரோ வந்து மெட்ராஸ் வந்திருக்கும். ஸோ August 22nd, if you think it's a colonial celebration, it is not. We are celebrating ourselves. So it is just like ஒரு தீபாவளி வந்து we don't let us say நரகாசுரனையோ கிருஷ்ணனையோ நினைக்கிறது இல்லை. தீபாவளி we think about our children, we think about our grandchildren, crackers, சிவகாசி and everything. So அந்த மாதிரி the city is about us and the city is about the celebration is about how successful we have been in urban development and how nice a people we have been. So தமிழ்னு நம்ம சொல்லிட்டு ஒரு Sanskrit college is just opposite us. For 110 years they offer a PhD. So we have been, let us say, or Madras இருக்க மாதிரி you're not so considerate to somebody who has come new because you know your father has come or your grandfather has come. Except the Masula boatmen or the Masula fishermen in Madras, nobody can claim. நல்லா ஒன்று பாருங்க, மெட்ராஸில் யாரை கேட்டிங்கனாலும் ஒரு நேட்டிவ் பிளேஸ் சொல்லுவான். என்னோட நேட்டிவ் பிளேஸ் அங்கே அப்படிமா. Everybody has a native place which they go to Diwali. That's why the city gets empty during Pongal and Diwali. We all go back to our native places. So அந்த மாதிரி we have been an extremely considerate city. We have showed the world that we can be successful being considerate also. We don't have to அடிச்சு பிடிச்சு மேலே வரணும்னு அவசியம் கிடையாது. We can be considerate and come up also. Thank you and good night.
We know why he is such a important speaker for every year. So much the way you go with your subject, so wonderful. We keep hearing, but somehow it doesn't stay in our every year. We like to listen. Wonderful. May I request Magesh to come and hand over this. Yeah.
Thank you.
ஓ ஓகே அப்படி இருங்க.
நான் கொடுக்குறேன் அவர் கொடுக்குறான்னு
Okay. தம்பி இதை எடுத்துறேன். So now that we have the small present to our Venkatesh on his 60th birthday, we will cut a small cake on our presence and we will all wish him a very happy birthday. Yeah.
I think the only time a cake has been cut on dais.
Srimati, can you come here?
Srimati.
Srimati has got this idea and
Oh, she got the idea.
yeah, Srimati, come here. No, பரவாயில்லம்மா. Yeah, can you?
கட் நான் தான் பண்ண போறேன். பக்கத்துல
So,
கேண்டில்
வா சும்மா வா பக்கத்துல வா.
கேண்டில்
நீ,
ஆனது. லட்சுமி வரல நினைக்கிறேன்.
Anybody from your
No,
house?
no, no, no.
Anybody has come?
No, no, no. they haven't.
Nobody has come. Huh?
When you give 20 talks a year, your family starts.
இல்ல இல்ல.
Getting
Today is a
irritated
special day, sir. அதனால வந்தாலான்னு கேட்டேன் நான். Okay. Okay. லைட் பண்ணு.
நீங்களே பண்ணலாமே சார்.
இல்லம்மா நீ வா. நீதான் சூத்திரதாரி இதுக்கு.
ஹாப்பி பர்த்டே.
Oh, thank you.
So let's all say happy birthday to you.
I haven't cut a cake for you.
Birthday to you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, sir. Thank you. You made my day.
Yes, you will always remember. Okay. Thank you.
And I'm on a sugar free, so you can.
Dappa, கட் பண்ணிட்டா வாங்க வாங்க ப்ளீஸ் கம் அண்ட் டேக் கட் பண்ணி ஒரு சும்மா ஒரே ஒரு பீஸ் எடுத்துக்கோங்க.
Yeah, sure.